I believe that the mastermind behind this incident will surpass all of our expectations. By what you mean? I can envision the personality of the enemy chief. The one who planned such a brutal assault that knowingly involved a great many normal city folk. Young lord, please pardon me, but there are several beasts in human skin who would do such a thing without batting an eye. Would those working under such a brutal chief be able to retreat in such an orderly fashion when it became clear their plan had failed? If the boss was brutal, he would probably have given the attackers strict orders to kill the target even at the cost of their lives. They should have been fully aware of what awaited them if they somehow failed in their mission and ran along home. However, when faced with defeat, they had retreated calmly. They decided to retreat even when they had enough excess power to care for the dead and wounded. They showed that their orders had included permission to retreat if they suffered a certain level of losses. We don't care if ordinary city folk get involved, just kill the Primavera and GDS VIPs. Would someone inhumane enough to give such an order also give his underlings permission to retreat? See? It's impossible. True enough. It's as you say, young lord. As hard as it is to imagine, the enemy chief is terrifyingly brutal, yet broad-minded enough to accept failure in his subordinates. It almost sounds like one of the enlightened rulers in the records of the Three Kingdoms. To my knowledge, people like that don't exist outside of myths. And I certainly haven't heard of an organization headed by such an enlightened ruler anywhere in the Kanto region, much less Tokyo. That is why I doubt it could be any of the possible masterminds you've hit upon so easily. The bosses were speechless, and if Gabriel had been there, he would have probably clapped his hands and laughed shrilly in honor of Zilong's wisdom. However, because the enemy wasn't alone, anyone in the criminal underworld, it was an assassination squad led by Gabriel, formed from around a core group of Japanese Americans. Right now, instead of spending time on that, there's another matter I would like to prioritize. And that's eliminating the source of the demagoguery claiming that the GDS was behind it all. That was probably arranged in advance of the attack. The rumor that we were the culprits had spread with unnatural swiftness. That must be another part of the enemy's strategy. It is likely that the attackers who concealed themselves are no longer within the city. I'm sure searching for them won't turn up any results. However, the schemer trying to frame us should still be in City 23. I'll investigate the source of the rumors at once. At Lee's signal, the bosses all rose to their feet. We have not a moment to waste. A lie left uncorrected will erode even the truth. At this rate, all will assume we really were behind these attacks. We will capture those trying to frame us and force them to divulge the identity of the mastermind. I expect a lot from you all. Go. Well, all truth is, for a lot of people that don't really think about it, it's just whatever's convenient and conforms to their worldview. Like, if they're a fucking conspiratorial person, they will only accept conspiracy answers. They won't accept a real answer, even if it's the truth. It won't matter. So if people already hate Chinese people, they're always going to just assume that the Chinese did it. It doesn't matter. Even if you go correct the record or whatever, you fact check the shit out of it. You can be 100% correct. They won't believe you and they won't care because they already have a preconceived notion and they're looking for a truth to fit that world, so they don't have to reconsider their own perspective. The boss bowed, then left hurriedly. The bosses bowed. Lee, I want you to remain in contact with Primavera. Of course, I'll continue to approach Cyrus and ask for a meeting with Richard. Was the funeral for his little sister held today? It was. It was to be a family funeral with close relatives only, so we were not allowed to attend. Those involved mentioned that there being a funeral service planned next Sunday, the 30th. There will probably be a chance to meet Richard at the funeral, But it would not be sincere to wait until then. We must express our condolences directly to make absolutely sure that they don't take it the wrong way. Understood? A Primavera without Madame Rose is like a wounded lion. You should treat them like a completely different organization than the one you know now. I've heard Richard is a man with a love of numbers. I do believe such a man wouldn't be led astray by rumors, but he's a dumb fuck, is what he is. The human heart cannot be explained by reason alone. True. Exactly. And the enemy has probably tried to make contact with Richard already. If I were the enemy leader, I would never miss a chance to go after him now, while he's still grieving over the loss of his sister. Of course, Lee had also predicted that an enemy plotting a feud between the two families would come to provoke Richard. However, to protect Richard during his mourning, Cyrus had blocked all people from meeting with him. Cyrus was a cool thinker. In order to protect Richard, he would keep a careful eye to make sure nothing roused Richard's temper. By blocking all interviews, Cyrus would probably also block any enemy contact. Even the wise Lee didn't think the culprit might actually be the one responsible for maintaining public order in City 23. He couldn't imagine an American approving a plan that killed American police officers who got dragged into the fight, just to get Japanese and Chinese mafia fighting each other again. Lee's wisdom itself prevented him from grasping Gabriel's madness. He's so fucking crazy, it doesn't even matter. If I were the enemy leader, I would never miss a chance to go after Richard now, while he's still grieving, the young lord had said that confidently. And he was exactly right. Hello? Please allow me to express my sincere condolences, Mr. Mayugi. Not at all. I must offer my heartfelt apologies for not preventing the disturbances that broke out in City 23. True, Cyrus had prevented all contact from outsiders wishing to offer their condolences, at least until the funeral. However, members of this occupying forces HQ were a special case, of fucking course. In particular, when the major in charge of public safety in City 23 came calling, he couldn't afford to turn him back. Forgive me for summoning you today. An officer in the occupying forces is supposed to be a neutral party, so I hope you see why it was difficult for me to meet you directly at your club. No trouble at all. On the contrary, my sister must be honored to receive your prayers, Major. His official reasoning for summoning Richard was so that he could be questioned regarding the events of the previous day. However, that was only done for show. Duh. Gabriel had invited Richard and the others into a Japanese-style room, where he gave them an extravagant reception to reward Richard for his hard work. Fucking jerk me off! Richard's pretty worn out. He won't be able to hang around too long today, okay? I understand, this shouldn't take long. Ever since the Major came, the almighty captain settled down quite a bit, huh? Please drop by the club whenever you like. Every now and then, forget the Major and let loose. That doesn't sound half bad. Once Captain Butler had such an intimate relationship with Primavera. However, ever since Gabriel took control, they had become estranged. Remarkably quickly. Yeah, it's crazy. It's almost like he has a leash on him. Cyrus thought it was probably because the special officer investigating corruption had Butler by the collar. Butler seemed somehow worn out and lifeless. To Cyrus, who'd known Butler well when he was bursting with energy, the change was a sad one. How's Rose looking? Sorry, but I can't say any more than that her condition's stable. I hear you moved her somewhere safe. She's in a safe, secret location. I can't say any more, not even to you, Captain. However, Once this cools down, I think it will be possible for you to come meet her. It was a bad time. Sorry. But please let us keep it a secret for now. I'm praying for a recovery. Gabriel's aide was standing right behind Butler to make sure he didn't say anything. This man understood Japanese. Oh, of course. He was checking to make sure Butler didn't say too much. By now, Butler had completely lost any fangs that might have resisted Gabriel. He was being blackmailed with something that forced him to surrender no matter what. The only way he could send a message was by showing them how much his aura had changed. Of course, such a subtle message would be lost on a plain man like Cyrus. I feel like it some people would notice. Like 20% of the population would notice. Only Keith noticed the faint change, but he's fucking not. He's useless. However, Keith had only met with Butler once before. Though he noticed a huge gap between this and Butler's earlier behavior, they hadn't been together long enough for him to pick up on anything more. Is that young one? I've seen that face before. Oh, Keith, it's complicated. Well, please think of him as Richard's new guard. Ever since Stella's funeral, Keith and Richard had become like brothers. On the surface, Keith had been removed from battalion to serve as Richard's personal guard. However, it was probably possible for Richard to seem calm only because someone sharing his pain was with him at all times. Today, Richard had made up his mind to take a considerably big step. After all, Gabriel was part of the occupying forces' public order department. From Primavera's perspective, they were pure victims in the recent incident. However, to an officer in charge of public order, it probably seemed like an underworld quarrel, with Primavera bearing half of the blame. Richard was worried this incident might be used as a reason to skip over the local occupying forces and crush Primavera directly from the GHQ level. However, Gabriel didn't blame Primavera at all. Yeah, I wonder why. Or rather, he didn't even use the word Primavera. He dealt with Richard as an individual man who was mourning the loss of his precious sister. Yeah, because he's manipulating him. To Richard, this was a greater comfort than anything else could have been. Like, he's obviously just manipulating him, just to get him what he wants, just to play his sympathies. Stoke the fires and shit. So you're like, oh, I have a friend in this guy. He couldn't betray me. Because once you're mourning and shit, you're not really going to be in the right headspace to understand when someone's taking advantage of you and manipulating you, obviously. I was certain the occupying forces would place the blame on that incident on me. As you explained, you were established for the purpose of acting as a bridge between the city folk and the occupying forces. I believe I understand your reason for existing. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right to the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Why are you quoting the Second Amendment at me? The Second Amendment of the United States Constitution, correct? I prefer the fourth here. Also, the no quartering troops, so get the fuck out of our city. It is my belief that as long as they do not strike against the government, having the Japanese people be armed to a degree will contribute to the stability of public order. There's a Japanese saying that snakes know the snake trails best, which Captain Butler once told me of. I believe public order can be maintained if I follow Captain Butler's example and join you in a three-legged race. And besides, I never have been the sort of good person you all expect me to be. Isn't that right, Phil? I'm a villain, aren't I? Yes, sir. When Butler answered, Gabriel laughed as though gloating. To Richard, it felt as though Gabriel was showing his understanding of Primavera's nature. Of course, it was all a farce. How much he must have loathed members of the criminal underworld. To think the man with the name of an angel could smile like this. Also that he could kill as many people in the underworld as possible. Richard, realizing that Gabriel had no intention of attacking Primavera, gradually relaxed. It was only natural, after all. Richard had nothing to lose from growing friendly with a man like Gabriel. You bastard. After waiting until the conversation between the two of them grew casual, Gabriel brought up the subject of his own past, including the fact that he too had lost a little sister. Gabriel took a picture in a decorative frame and showed it to Richard. It showed a smiling girl with long hair with gentle waves. Elizabeth Cabrera, nicknamed Liz, They believe the beloved little sister Gabriel had adored more than anything else. She was caught up in a certain incident and went to heaven while still young. So, I believe I know the pain of losing a little sister better than anyone. Major. So when I see you, I must offer my praise. I know that even now, you're being cautiously tormented by pain, continuously. That's tearing your heart apart. Such feelings cannot even remotely suppressed by logic and cheap talk. I forgot to mention this, but I'm no longer an officer in charge of eliminating organized crime. You and I are comrades who both know the pain of losing little sisters in unforgivable incidents. So don't feel that you have to push yourself so hard anymore. Forgive me, but it seems I've reached my limit. Gabriel took out a handkerchief and wiped his eyes. These tears in his eyes of the young major, who had once actually seemed ruthless, broke down the dam, holding back Richard's emotions. After that, he couldn't hold back the tears any longer. As tears trickled down his face, he hung his head and frantically tried to block any further emotions. Richard. It's alright. Seems Major Cabrera also lost his little sister due to a certain incident. To Keith, Gabriel's tears looked real. Ha! That was hardly surprising. After all, the pain he felt from losing Elizabeth was real. So even Keith's keen eyesight wasn't enough to penetrate the evil lurking beyond Gabriel's tears. From here on out, I'd like to move to purely personal matters. Let's put aside our roles as occupying forces officer and Japanese mafia consigliere. Let us talk as fellow big brothers who know the pain of losing sisters. By which you mean? Gabriel paused, picked up the picture of his little sister, and took a deep breath. Liz, my little sister was killed by Chinese mafia. Oh my god! Stop you! Oh, get out of here. Yeah, fucking scumfuck. It was probably true that Gabriel's sister was killed by a mafia. It was in America. It was Italian. However, it wasn't a Chinese mafia that was involved. Butler knew well that the most terrifying lies are the ones that are 90% truths. Because you won't notice that little bit of lie just to inflame it a little bit, to be like, oh, we both have that in common. Oh. That was why no one could possibly see through the lie of Gabriel's tears. At those words, Richard let out a deep sigh. I knew it. Fuck those Chinese. It was easy to tell by looking that he suspected the GDS most in Stella's murder, though he wasn't certain. After taking careful notice of this, Gabriel advanced the conversation. To Butler, watching from the sideline, it looked like both a comedy and a tragedy. I mean, you know what's going to end. He knows how it's going to end. After all, the sympathy of a man who killed Stella was moving Richard emotionally to the point of tears. At the time, I was a boy, completely powerless. But I learned two things from it. What were those? First, you must solve problems with your own hands. You mustn't rely on anyone else. No one else will help you. It's only natural. How could anyone who hasn't lost a sister know how you feel? Second, it taught me that power is necessary. Gabriel was talking about a single type of action. Richard's mind slowly drifted towards a single word describing that action. In the instant before he realized that his action Gabriel said it out loud. Power is necessary for revenge, right? At the mention of revenge, Richard's eyes shook for an instant. Richard probably thought he was maintaining his poker face. However, from Butler's point of view, much less Gabriel's, Richard's heart had been laid completely bare by now. Yeah, he's mourning. You don't have that defensive wall up. You can act like you do, but it's very obvious. Once you get rattled a little bit, everything's book. I studied hard to avenge my sister to gain power. And then I reached this position faster than anyone. If I had been then as I am now, I probably would have been able to protect my sister. Now it's possible for me to let everyone else see what? It's possible for me to let everyone see what will happen. If they ever have me as their enemy. However, you have that power now. It should be possible for you to take revenge for your sister now. No. It's too late. Those responsible lived as they pleased and have already lost their lives in some feud. For members of the criminal underworld, feuds are an everyday thing, are they not? In that sense, the ones who killed my sister lived out their natural lifespans, without ever being punished. It's sad, isn't it? Justice was never carried out. I raised the hammer, and now I must hold it in the air forevermore. But you know what? I think this is the will of heaven. No, the will of my sister in heaven. I think Liz wants me to save someone suffering the pain as me. Same pain as me. Of course, that's just cheap talk. But for that reason, I sympathize with you from the heart. I want to help you more than anyone else does. Once again, I'm not saying this as an officer of the military police. These are my honest feelings, as a personal individual, as a fellow brother who knows your pain. Major. Stella's, no, Sumiko, killer, is not only your foe, but mine as well. We must give the culprits a taste of our pain, so that no one has to suffer from it in the future. Justice demands that the sin of stealing someone's beloved sister be punished. Justice. What a chance the two brothers bearing the sis pain would come across the oceans to meet. I think it's a sign, yes. This is a miracle. This is the revelation given to me from heaven. You must save your neighbor, stricken by the sadness of losing a sister. No one can understand the suffering of that neighbor. No one except those who have suffered the same. Even though it was such a showy farce, Richard's eyes were filled with nothing but Gabriel's smile. Why couldn't Cyrus and the guard Keith see that their boss was being ensnared when it was happening right in front of them? Because he's enjoying it. Was it all because all of this was being spoken in English? Or had they averted their eyes out of respect for their boss's feelings? That's exactly it. Butler almost choked, feeling a rising urge to vomit, and hung his head without meaning to. He thought hanging out in the underworld had left him accustomed to seeing disgusting sights. However, he was now very, very aware of how wrong that was, to think that true evil could bring about such a strong urge to vomit. However, for that very reason, Butler couldn't disobey. He couldn't disobey Gabriel anymore. Your pain is mine as well. I want to ask you to become my friend, but if you would allow it, would you let me bear your pain alongside you? That's such an evil way to manipulate someone. Gabriel spread his arms. Because you're acting as that sympathetic, I can pour my heart into you. You understand what I'm going through. You use that empathy, and you just use it to backstab him. Awful. To Richard, they probably looked like the wings of the only angel in this world who could understand his pain. Shakily, Richard walked towards Gabriel as though being drawn in. Don't do it. If you accept the hug of that fallen angel, it will be too... In that instant, the butler averted his eyes. Richard accepted the fallen angel's embrace and buried his face in his shoulder. He gave up his sadness and happy tears of being understood, as the fallen angel gave him tears of revenge and scorn. By now, Richard's heart could no longer escape. Even though his close friend Cyrus was there, the man who supposedly knew him better than anyone else. Even though Keith was there, the man who supposedly understood the pain of his heart better than anyone else. Richard's heart was bound by the fallen angel. Sad. Afterwards, Richard explained Gabriel's past to Keith and Cyrus in Japanese. He explained that the two of them were comrades who both hated the ones who murdered their sisters. Keith, who was willing to team up with the devil if it meant finding Stella's killer, couldn't possibly resist the fallen angel's lure. Which is why I didn't agree with him being near him, because he's so fucking irrational right now. Both of them are. Cyrus is the only one that could actually do something about it. But he's gonna be like, well, my friend over here is really suffering. Wow, this guy's really nice to him. That's the problem. Cyrus, you need to be more fucking forceful. Even Cyrus, who wanted to form connections with the occupying forces in Forces HQ, had no reason to resist the fallen angel's lure. So Richard offered up all of his naked heart to Gabriel. Eat it up! So then, has there been any progress in gathering information on Sumiko's killer? He called her by her real name, not Stella, because it makes him seem more close. It struck deeper and deeper into Richard's heart as he extended his claws deep into that chest. We've done all that we can to search for the culprit. We fully intend to make them pay for their crime. Of course, seeing that through is the embodiment of justice. I also swear to assist you in your search to the best of my abilities. What'd the Major say? He expressed his sincere desire to help search for the culprit. Oh, that's great news! If we can get the help of the HQ officer, nothing can stop us. I'm glad for the help, but all we need is information. It's my gun that'll finish the culprit off in the end. Of course, you're the one who has that right for accepting Stella. However, if your bullet happens to miss, I'll grab that right for myself on the spot. Richard, that's a pretty harsh joke. My bullets could catch him between the eyebrows from a kilometer away. I didn't call for you today for the purpose of some meaningless police interview. I wanted to tell you about some information, evidence I've obtained that will aid us in our revenge. Pardon me, what did you say? I know the identity of the despicable culprits who killed our little sister. Rustling, rustle. Richard's hair seemed to twitch. Rustle. Oh my god, it's alive! His eyes were wide open. His hands were open as though about to grab onto Gabriel, and he shook. Major, did you say you know who the culprit is? Once you know, it's actually quite simple. Perhaps you should hear the rest of them from them directly. The ones involved who know the inside story. Oh, they're gonna bring in the fucking... Oh, sad. That's so dumb. They're waiting in another room. Phil, could you bring them in? Yes, sir. So dumb. After a short while, Butler guided in two Chinese men in the prime of their life. The two of them bowed respectively, then they introduced themselves in English. Butler provided a simultaneous translation so that Cyrus and Keith understood too. It's been a long time, consigliere Mayugi. Why wouldn't they speak in Chinese if they're... whatever. We met you at the ceremony of the establishment of the City 23 Society for the Mutual Aid of Japanese Countrymen. He was referring to the ceremony 2 years ago when the reborn Primavera was established. Many people from powers of the neighboring cities had come to witness the formal establishment of the new force that had conquered City 23. Even Richard didn't remember every single person who had been there. I apologize for forgetting your names, even though we were introduced. Allow me to introduce myself again. I'm Richard Mayugi, Primavera's consigliere. I'm glad we had a chance to meet. However, it's only natural for you forgot. There were so many people there. The pair introduced themselves, but Richard didn't remember them. However, going out by their atmosphere and demeanor, there could be no doubt that they were VIPs in the Chinese criminal underworld. I don't feel like the GDS. I remember, whatever. What's that guy on the lives in the city aids Bajanbang? My. So you are an elder of them? That's former elder, I'm sad to say. We were chased out by the youngster Ma, who claims little for duty or humanity. Come to think of it, that's right. If I remember correctly, during the soy sauce war, Li and Young Lord teamed up with the young leader named Ma from Bajanbang, and they aided each other in their respective coups. In other words, your indirect enemies to Li's group. What is all this about, Major? Are you saying they know who killed my sister? Wow, guess what? You know the guys who are my enemy? Yeah, it just happens to be those guys too. The people I hate. To skip to the end, yes. The Japanese proverb states, where there's smoke, there's... How did that go again? There's no smoke without fire. It's how it goes, sir. Ah, there you have it, Richard. I'm not sure I understand your meaning. I mean that the ones you currently suspect most are indeed the culprits. And who is that? Is it the GDS, is it? Spit it out. Oh, hold on now. We can't be so sure yet. This is a rather sensitive topic for us. It would be greatly appreciated if you put an end to these word games. To jump to the conclusion, all of this was instigated by Sun Zilong and Li Maiju of the GDS. As soon as Butler finished translating, Keith turned around fiercely. Cyrus held him in place. Calm down, listen to the end. I don't need to. Please let go of me, Grand Boss. Don't take me lightly, boy. It's too early to decide. Even if the GDS turns out to be our enemy, we're gonna decide the time and place to take our revenge. I know how you feel, and there are times that revenge on our own terms would make everything Stella tried to build worthless. You couldn't tell it by his fierce face, but Cyrus was very good at dealing with men overcome by strong emotions. The demon sergeant hadn't held his troops together by physical strength alone. However, because Keith had flown into a rage in his place, Richard was able to regain his composure slightly. Ever since the Soy Sauce War, Primavera and GDS had been in a Cold War situation. Yes, so they're going to, in that Cold War situation, they're going to start a war. Just outright start it. Why would they even have a Cold War? Why wouldn't they just kill you during the Soy Sauce War? It makes no sense. It's so dumb. You helped Sun Zilong take over and get more power. Why would he then turn to attack you? This is so dumb. You just need to think about this for like 2 seconds, and then these things start just falling apart once you just give it a monochrome of fucking thought. However, ever since its foundation, the GDS have been trying to control City 23's harbor districts, and it never abandoned this goal. So we try to kill Rose and his daughter. The one thing that's going to make them kill us. Now that the GDS had a close relationship with the young head of the Bajang in a superior position, there's no reason for them to maintain this Cold War. Sure, Richard had given some thought to the possibility that someone was trying to set Primavera and the GDS against each other for their own benefit. But you know what? I don't want to think about that. However, this was also impossible. Of course it was. After all, Primavera had the backing of the American military, and the GDS had the backing of the Chinese military. In other words, trying to take on both of these forces together would be like trying to take on the GHQ itself. Why? You put so much faith in the GHQ and the Americans, when literally at every turn that they ever need American support, they don't get in it. Because they're like, oh, if you ever fight the Chinese, you're on your own, buddy. Why? The battle for dominance in post-war Japan was an Othello game that only the U.S. and Chinese militaries could play. He never would have dreamed that a high-level GHQ officer might have planned such a massacre for the sake of personal revenge. Well, that's the illogical part. Oh,